In today's video, we're going to talk about the different types of e-learning that you can use in your online course. When you're building an online course, there's basically three types of e-learning that you can put into that course: synchronous, asynchronous, and blended. In this video, I'm going to give you some great examples of synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, and blended learning, and tell you a little bit more about when you should be using these different types. We'll start with synchronous learning. Synchronous learning is basically learning in real time. A good example of this would be audio or video conferencing. Now, there are a lot of tools that you can use for audio and video conferencing, but one of the easiest and most commonly used one is Zoom. Zoom is a great way that you can have a live classroom and talk to your students right then and right there. They can talk back and ask questions just like a regular classroom. As we go on through this, you'll see that Zoom can actually be used for several of these other examples, but I'm going to throw a different example in for each type. Another good example of a synchronous learning is a chat platform. This is just somewhere that you and your students can chat back and forth with each other. One of the ones that I recommend for this is Slack. It's a great place where you can not only chat back and forth with them, but you can actually share PDFs, pass out links, and interact all in one spot. The nice thing about having your class in a Slack room is it's easy to search back through the chat and find anything you may have missed. Another example of synchronous learning in your online course is a webinar. Now, there are thousands of platforms that you can use for a webinar, but one of the more popular ones is Webinar Jam. This is a synchronous type of learning because, again, it is live and you're interacting directly with your students. A lot of times in a webinar, you can set it up so that the students can be active only in the chat, or you can actually have them active on the webcam, like over in Zoom. You'll notice the webinar style is very popular when you're doing a workshop. Online workshops are a great example of synchronous e-learning. And of course, there is the online classroom. The online classrooms are usually built specifically for online teaching. The example I have up here, Big Blue Button, is actually used by a lot of schools. Big Blue Button actually does integrate with a few LMS services. When you look at Big Blue Button's features, you'll notice it has a combination of features, both that you would see in something like Zoom and something you would see in an LMS. It's got the whiteboard, screen sharing, everybody can get on the cam, it has polling, breakout rooms. It's just got a lot of features in it. Another example of asynchronous learning is app sharing. Now, probably one of the easiest examples that you're most familiar with are the Google products. The one I have up here is called Jamboard. If you haven't played with Jamboard, it can be a lot of fun, and I suggest you check it out. But you could also check out Google Sheets and Google Docs. All of this is a synchronous style of learning because you're working in real time with your students. You could get them either on a call or in a chat room and have them working at the exact same time you are. The last style of synchronous learning I'm going to mention is instant messaging. If you live in the world today, you know about instant messaging apps. You probably have one. Instead of mentioning the common ones, I'm going to mention one that you may not know about, and it's called Zoho Click. If you want to have more of a private instant messenger just for your class, I suggest not having them on WhatsApp, Facebook, or one of the common ones where they're going to get distracted. Setting up an instant messenger just for your class and scheduling an instant message chat at a certain time is a great way to interact with your students. The next type of e-learning you can use in your online course is called asynchronous. This is more self-paced by the learner. These are the ones you're probably more familiar with when it comes to online courses. The first example of this would be a learning management system. I have the example up here of Podia. That's where your students can go in at any time, open the material, and learn on their time at their hours and at their own pace. Another example of this would be discussion forums and message boards. One of the examples here I use is Vanilla. A great reason to use a message board or forum is it's easily searchable by topic. Your students can go in when they have a chance, they can ask questions of other students, and it creates a community. Falling in the same area are discussion groups. They kind of blend over into each other. The most common example of this is a Facebook group. But if all your students aren't on Facebook, or you want to host it on your own website, an example might be Discourse. Discourse allows a lot of the same features that you would expect in a discussion group. You can provide moderators, you can invite people in, and keep it private. And because it's separate from a social media platform, it's a way for your students to stay focused on the work instead of getting distracted by all the bings and bangs of what's going on the other platforms. Another example of an asynchronous course would be an email course. Now, an email course you would think would be synchronous because of the fact that you usually drip out the content. But it's also asynchronous because you don't control when that person opens the content. I took a 30-day email course recently, and there were several times that I needed to skip a couple days because I was busy doing something else. I went back later on when I was available and read several of them in a row. So an automated email course actually does fall into asynchronous because it allows your student to open that and read that email when they have time. The last example I'm going to give of asynchronous learning is a blog. Now, most people think of a blog as something that everybody can access. If you use a website that lets you set up private pages that are password protected, you can actually create your course in a blog format on your own website. This allows your students to sign in and read the blog post when it's convenient for them. Now, I just ran you down with a whole bunch of examples of both synchronous and asynchronous e-learning ideas for your online course. But there's also a third one, and it's called blended. Blended is just like it sounds. It is a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous learning. When you're running through your course design, you're going to want to think about a few things to decide which kind is the best for you. Do you need synchronous, asynchronous, or a blended approach? Are there going to be a lot of questions? Do you feel that you need to have a Q&A? In that case, you're going to need some synchronous. Are the people in a lot of different time zones all over the world? In that case, you're going to need some asynchronous. Do you need to give a lot of feedback on topics? Are you going to be evaluating or reviewing things? In these cases, you need a synchronous. How broad is your topic? Does it go a lot of different directions and people may not need every bit of it? In that case, you may want an asynchronous so that they can skip around. A good learning management system will include a lot of these features, both synchronous and asynchronous. This saves you the time of trying to get all these different factors to work together. So once you've sat down and designed the idea of how you want your course to be, go and look for your LMS system after that so that you can find the most features that are going to match the way you want to teach. If you've taught an online course before, which kind did you teach? Was it a synchronous course where everybody was live, or was it more of an asynchronous course where it was self-paced? Or did you use a blended approach? Drop a comment down below and let me know.